Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Haunt of Love and Lies. Episode 13. Chapter 113. Sheila's point of view. I folded my arms against my chest as everyone's eyes were on me, as if expecting me to make a decision. Were they being serious right now? It was like they were asking me to choose between my family and Killian. No. I won't be a part of this. I refuse to be a part of this. I shook my head, taking a step back. No. Don't drag me into this, I said, turning away. Leonardo motioned forward to me, his large arms wrapped me around his body, and I could feel myself rolling my eyes. But it wasn't me. I looked in Killian's direction and his hooded eyes were on us. We need to talk, but not tonight, he said, placing a kiss on my forehead. Take care, sister, he whispered before turning to an already fuming Kaiser who was not liking how things were going. Let's go. Kaiser shook his head, meeting my blue eyes. But before he spoke, I hugged him. Even if no one understood Kaiser's rage, I did. I knew Leonardo did too, but it wasn't the same. 14 years ago, when Killian's father invaded the pack with the Dark Circle army, Kaiser and I were alone with Mother and the warriors. What we experienced that night wasn't something that we could easily let go of. Killian's father killed our mother right before our eyes, as she was focused on saving me instead of herself. If I hadn't forgotten my memories and I had grown up with my brothers, I knew I would have carried that rage as well, hating the Crescent North Pack. So, I couldn't reproach my family's hatred toward Killian's pack. But still, I couldn't blame Killian and the pack for what his father did to my family. They also had a share of their tragedy. I watched both Leonardo and Kaiser retreat into the woods, before morphing into their wolves. Mason and the warriors have transported the prisoners from Lucius's pack already, Morgan said, pulling out of a mind link. And Devon? I asked, and Killian's eyes turned to mine. Devon was here. Killian asked and I nodded. Lucius sent me a message saying he had Devon and would have him killed if I didn't show up at the mountains, I explained. Don't worry, Devon is fine. We found him during the fight, Morgan said. We should head back to the pack, Killian finally said, leading us out of the woods to where a few of the pack warriors were waiting for us. I got on the horse, and Killian jumped on behind me. Most of the warriors were in their wolf forms as we headed back to our territory. Killian and I barely exchanged a word on our way back to the pack. We arrived soon, and Valerie and the witches were still busy. I walked into the castle, heading for my chamber when Killian called out to me. We should talk, he said. Just a second, I need to shower and dress my wound, I pointed at the wound on my arm that hasn't begun healing. I forgot, Killian almost smacked himself. I will send Dr. Maggie over. There's no need, I said, I will see you in a bit. I went to my chamber and closed the door behind me, taking several calming breaths. I couldn't understand why my heart was racing so fast in my chest, and why I kept avoiding this conversation with Killian. I sighed, coming to terms that I can't stall the inevitable forever. I stripped from my blood-stained dress, hurrying to the washing room for the quickest shower of my life. I wrapped a towel around my body and stalked out. I got dressed and motioned to Killian's chamber. I pulled the door open without knocking. Killian was standing by the window, looking out into the midnight darkness, while the moon shimmers fell on his muscular body and beautiful face. He was not wearing a shirt, so I could see the outline of the inked wolf on his chest and back that covered his branded scars. Killian's dark eyes moved from the window to the door, where I was standing. He leaned against the smooth wall as I ambled into the room, locking the door behind me. Killian watched me as I walked slowly to where he was. I stopped near the bed, pressing down on it. "Any word from Valerie?" I asked, filling the staking, unwelcoming silence. Killian shook his head. "Not yet, they are still busy." I nodded, leveling my blue eyes to his. We just stared at each other for the shortest second before Killian sighed deeply, brushing his palm on his face. "I don't even know what to say, or how to say it." "Just say it as it is, Killian," I muttered honestly, removing my gaze from his. I just wanted it to be over. I didn't know what Killian was thinking. All I felt from him was the same emotions of rage, pain, and confusion. At least it was a good thing he didn't hate me, yet. "It's been a month, Sheila. A month since the attack and you recovered your memories and remembered everything. Why didn't you just tell me?" He bit out frustratedly. I could see the hurt in his eyes. "I am sorry, Killian, but what did you expect me to do? Don't you think I was dying to tell you the truth? But how could I, when at every chance you get, you speak against my family and make unruly accusations?" I said. "Accusations? Come on, Sheila, you know it's the truth. I lost Carl all because of that stupid war Alpha Logan started." Killian moved from the wall, inching closer to the bed. "And I lost my mother by your father's hands, while he forced Kaiser and me to watch," I shouted. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to, but I couldn't fight the pain that came from remembering my mother's death," and my eyes clouded with tears. "You lost your brother, and it was unfair, but I also lost my mother and father, and my entire life that night all because of your father." Tears rolled from my eyes and I was up on my feet, moving around the room. "I am sorry." He walked closer to me, his large hand moving to wipe off the tears from my face. His amber eyes softened with something I hated to see in his depth. "Killian's point of view? No, Killian, you shouldn't be. It's not your fault," she said to me. "It doesn't change what my father did to you," I said to Sheila, wiping off her tears. I just hated seeing her in tears. Even though I despised it, I was still my father's son. How could I erase the fact that my mate had suffered at the hands of my father? I just couldn't, and I know it would haunt me for the rest of my life. What happened that night wasn't your fault, nor mine, nor my brother's. Everything happened all because of Nell Reed, so please, Killian, I am begging you, put an end to this rage and hatred for the Black Blood Pack, please," Sheila begged, clasping her hands around mine. I knew she wasn't liking this situation as well. Even though I felt hurt and angry, I understood why she didn't tell me the truth. I couldn't blame her. I might have done the same as well. Frankly, deep down I wished I hadn't known the truth. I wished Sheila had nothing to do with them, but I couldn't fool myself. This was our reality. She was a daughter to the family I had spent every waking moment of my life despising. And I was the son of the man that had caused her so much pain at a young age. I couldn't stop the pool of tears that gathered in my eyes. Why on earth did this hurt so much? Why on earth couldn't I erase that truth? I just wished I could. I can't, I replied, my heart shattering at the hurt and pain that took hold of her eyes. That is next to impossible, Sheila, I said the truth. The last thing I wanted was to lie to her and make false promises. I didn't know how to stop hating them. A tear slipped down her cheekbones, and she pulled her hands away from me. So, now what? She said, folding her hands around her waist as if desperately wanting to warm herself. What happens to us? And don't ask me to make a choice. I shook my head. I would never ask that of her. Not because I cared for them, but because I knew that if it ever came to that, Sheila would be the one hurt the most and I would never want that. Also, the thought of her making a choice terrified me. I didn't want to lose her. Nothing happens to us, Sheila, I said. I love you and we are mates, I said, stifling a smile. Trust me, Sheila, I don't want to lose you. I accept those. I searched for the convenient word. I accept they are your brothers, and I swear to you, I will learn to deal with it, but nothing is happening to us, I said, inching closer to her that I could almost feel the sweet taste of her lips on mine, but I was suddenly mind-linked by Morgan. He spoke in a hurry, completely breathless. As soon as I registered his words, a smile broke on my lips. My eyes shimmered with pure happiness, meeting Sheila's. What? She asked, gently. It's from Valerie, I said, smiling. I can't believe this. She says we are free. It worked, Sheila, the curse is broken. Before Sheila could speak, held her waist, and pulled her to me, kissing her. Sheila's point of view. I kept smiling at the members of the pack and everyone present at the celebration. I was standing at a corner in the grand hall, wearing one of the silken dresses, tailored by Lady Eleanor, who's rumoured by Betrayal to be the finest clothier in all of North Central. It had a high neck, and a small opening, showing off the valley of my chest. Killian had made a fuss about it, insisting it was quite revealing, but the girls came to my defense, and I particularly loved it, as well as the astounding wonders Betrayal made of my brown hair, tying it into a neat ponytail. I was chatting with a few Lunas that had accompanied their mates to the party. It was a small feast, celebrating me and the pack, as I have officially been linked to the pack, and hence I could mind link every member of the pack because Killian and I have marked each other. Also, it was a small feast for the pack, celebrating their freedom from the Crescent curse that has plagued them for years. We were all happy. Every one of us. I was happy as well, but it would have been very lovely to have my brothers here with me. The Black Blood pack wasn't invited because both my brothers and Killian still can't stand each other, and besides, Leonardo and Kaiser are being watched by the council as they believe that they know my whereabouts. I excused myself from the small circle, looking around for Killian. I had barely gotten past a conversation with him since the party started. I scanned the hall once more. I could see almost everyone having fun and enjoying the party. So where was Killian? I sneaked out of the hall, grabbing my dress as its long length swept through the floors. I tried to mind-link Killian, but I couldn't. Odd. He had blocked himself from being mind-linked, even by me. I went to his chamber, but I couldn't find him there, so I sauntered to his office. I held the knob and pulled it open gently. The office was dark. The draperies were folded against each other, intentionally, to keep even the moon's bright glow out. Killian was there, seated behind the table on his chair, and his face was buried in his palm. He didn't even lift his head until I closed the door behind me, and my scent enveloped the room. Was he only aware of my presence? Killian lifted his head, staring at me near the door. I couldn't see his face. I gave my fingers a little wave in the air, and the torches in the office lit up with fire. Killian's face came into view as I moved closer to him. I couldn't find you at the party, I said, walking around the table, to his chair. I had some things to tend to urgently, Killian said, sweeping lost tendrils of his hair back. Is that so? I missed you, I said in the most tempting and seductive voice I could conjure, falling into Killian's lap. He wrapped his arms around me. And I missed you too, he said, pulling me closer, and changing the game. Usually, when I say those words, Killian had naughty to say. I didn't say anything, and just wrapped my hands around his neck, diving into his eyes. There was nothing there. No emotion there, and I couldn't feel him because he had blocked his link. My hands went to his silken hair and I leaned closer, kissing him. Killian responded to my kisses, until we pulled apart, panting. His finger stroked the bottom of my lips, gently, before returning his lips to mine, kissing me again. Something was off with Killian, I could sense it. We should get back to the party, I said, pecking his lips. I promise, I'll be right behind you. I just have to sort through some papers, Killian muttered to me. I nodded nonetheless. See you soon, Killian, I voiced, pulling up from his lap. I had a lot I wanted to speak to Killian about, amongst it all was Thea's departure from the pack. Yesterday, I paid her a short visit and ordered the helpers to get her belongings for tomorrow, as she will finally be leaving from here. But this wasn't the best time to speak to Killian about that or any other thing. I sauntered to the door, almost moving outside when I heard Killian call from behind. I stopped, tilting my head to where he was seated behind the table. My blue eyes met his amber eyes. Sheila, I love you, he said thoughtfully, making my lips splinter with a smile. I know, I replied, leaving the office and joining the celebration. It didn't take long before Killian made an appearance at the Grand Hall. He joined me in the company of some of the guests from the neighboring packs and was by me throughout the party, but his thoughts were far away. The celebration lasted till the peak of midnight. Killian and I only left the hall when almost half of the guests from other packs had left, while some were staying over. Killian pulled the door to his chamber open, and we gated in with his hands around my waist. I removed my earrings, and stripped out from my dress, donning one of Killian's robes on my body. I went to the bed where he was sitting with only his pants. I pressed my body against him, plopping down on his lap. All right, Killian, what's wrong? I questioned. I couldn't keep on waiting for him to speak. It killed me to have no idea what was wrong with him. Killian shut the gate with his eyes closed, sighing deeply. When he opened his eyes, a smile covered his lips, but that didn't fool me. The smile didn't even reach his eyes. It's nothing, love, I swear, he kissed the mark on my neck, so sensually that I moaned, changing from my position on his lap, now straddling him. Killian kept on assaulting my neck in the best way possible, but I stopped him before things got heated. He wasn't going to divert my attention so easily. "This isn't nothing, tell me what's going on," I poked harder. "Don't stress yourself, it's pack business and not important," he insisted, returning his lips to my body, leaving a feathery trail. "All right, tell me and we will work it out if it'll wipe off the gloom in your eyes." "I hate it," I told him honestly. Killian chuckled deeply. It was better than the faux smile he had held a while ago. His hands pulled me closer to his bare chest. Killian's hands on my waist began to move on my body. One rested on my back and the other rubbed on the flatness of my stomach, caressing it gently. "Sheila," his lips rolled my name out lovingly, and I fell into his bright round eyes. "I have been thinking, and," he paused, inhaling. "How would you feel about having my pup?" My brows shot up and my lips parted, gasping. "Killian, are you crazy?" I couldn't confine the smile that kept hounding my lips. "Why would even ask that? Of course, I would be happy to have a child with you, not just one, but as many as we want." Killian's smile deepened, reaching his eyes. It was genuine, but his amber irises held a certain kind of sadness at the same time. "It would be lovely," he muttered, brushing his lips with mine. "Oh goddess, I would give anything, Sheila, to have you be the mother of all my children," he said, releasing a bitter chuckle. "As many as we want." I pulled my hand to his cheek, caressing it softly. "Killian, you are worrying me." "I am sorry, I am just so confused." "I don't know what to do," he said, not masking the pain, sadness, and confusion rooted in his eyes. "Killian, talk to me, tell me what's wrong." I moved on him, but he gripped my waist and pinned me to the bed. "We will talk about it tomorrow," he said, kissing my lips. "But for now all I want is to make you feel wonders and give pleasure to your body," he said to me. "Promise?" I uttered, and Killian's brows furrowed. "You know I make good on my words," he whispered in my ears, seducing me. "Not that silly," I couldn't help but laugh. "You'll tell me what's wrong tomorrow?" Killian hesitated a while, before moving his head in agreement. "I promise." He wrapped his arms around me, kissing me, and I kissed him back. Even in the heat of the moment as our bodies were bare against each other, somewhere deep in my chest, I couldn't shake off the fear in my heart. I had a bad feeling about what Killian had to tell me, and suddenly, tomorrow terrified me. Sheila's point of view. I shifted underneath the covers, stirring on the large bed. I stretched to the other side of the bed where Killian was laying, but I was greeted by a disturbing coldness from the sheets. My eyes tore open, and I groaned, adjusting my eyes to the bright sun rays that sneaked through the window, descending on me. I rose to a sitting position on the bed, brushing back my long brown hair. I peered at the window. The sun was shining so brightly and I had overslept. I moved my eyes back to the bed, but Killian wasn't beside me. He must have woken up early to get ready for the day. Today was a little busy, as Killian would be attending a meeting at the council's castle, and I also had a lot of things to tend to in the pack, amongst which was looking forward to kicking Thea out of the pack. I left the bed, showered quickly and got dressed in one of my training clothes. I joined the warriors at the training field and I trained with Brielle, Ria, and Alan. All through, I didn't see Killian or Morgan. I mind-linked Morgan, asking after Killian. Apparently, he was at the field in the woods, training. I left for the woods. I saw Morgan under the shade of a tree, leaning against it, and from afar, I saw Killian. He was training all alone. Fighting like he was fighting against an unknown opponent that he badly wanted to get rid of. Has he been like this all morning? I stopped beside Morgan, joining him under the shade. Morgan's emerald green eyes shifted on me, and he nodded his head gently. Yes, Morgan's eyes pulled back to Killian. Something's wrong with Killian. Yes, I muttered, not taking my eyes off Killian. He's been like this since yesterday, I was honest. Morgan's eyes drifted back to me. He won't tell me what's really going on, and he keeps turning his link on and off, I said to Morgan. To be frank, Morgan, I am terrified. I feel like whatever he isn't telling me is bad, really bad. Don't say that, Morgan placed a hand on my shoulder. He's just probably dealing with everything that happened these past few days, Morgan said with concern, and I threw him a look, knowing neither of us believed that. But he was right, a lot had happened the last few days between all of us, starting with Morgan and Killian finding out about my true identity and the curse being broken. Something was wrong with Killian, and I hoped to the goddess, I find out what was really wrong with Killian. Don't worry too much about it, Sheila, Morgan pulled out from the shade. His care and concern forced a smile on my face. Even after he found out the truth about me, his care for me didn't go away. I knew that Morgan, Killian, and my brothers may never be able to shield the hatred that existed between them, but it was more than enough for me. They haven't murdered each other. Sheila, Morgan's voice jerked my attention back to him. You should go to him. He gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze, sending me a smile, before walking away. I held a smile, watching him leave, requesting the moon goddess to bless Morgan with a beautiful mate. He deserved it. My gaze traveled back to Killian, who was in the middle of the field a distance from where I was, fighting. Even as I moved closer to him, he still didn't sense my presence. He's been constantly lost in deep thoughts. Killian, at my call, he spun around, his eyes connecting with mine. Love, he said, placing a kiss on my lips. What are you doing here? To train, obviously, I said, smiling, in a flirtatious manner. Killian groped my waist, digging me into his arms. Are you sure about that? I pulled out of his arms, nodding. Just don't go easy on me, otherwise you'll regret it. I took my stance, and Killian smirked, taking his stance. We began training, and for the first time he was actually going easy on me, making it easy to pin him against the ground and I was on top of him. The smile across his face deepened, and as I stared into his eyes, I couldn't hold back the question choking my chest. It's time, Killian. Tell me, what's the reason behind the sadness in your eyes? Killian's point of view. I was panting so hard by the time Sheila pinned me on the ground so easily and effortlessly, she came on top of me. I couldn't repress the smile that momentarily found my lips as I felt her warm body lean on my chest. Her perfect round eyes dived right into mine, and I could literally see the questions that flew out of her lips. "It's time, Killian. Tell me, what's the reason behind the sadness in your eyes?" I didn't know when my hold around my mate's flawless body tightened, and I fought every emotion from my eyes. I tried pulling up from the ground, but Sheila pinned me the more. "Last night you made a promise to me, Killian. Now, tell me, what's really going on with you?" Sheila's eyes furrowed on me as she asked again with worry. I felt my bones tense beneath her soft body, and my only option was to stare back at her. I hated to see the worry in her blue crystals, but I couldn't tell her what was really going on. At least not now. Even Riker and I haven't fully come to terms with our new reality. There was no way I could ever keep this secret from her or anyone else in the pack. It was only a matter of time before everyone began to find out. I hated this. I hated it badly. Why did something like this happen now, at a time when I was beginning to have a chance with Sheila? I shut my eyes, feeling the pain and sadness from inside my bones. I swear to the goddess I would do anything and give everything just to make this go away. Just to make Sheila the one instead. I fought the stinging that began to erupt around the corners of my eyes, just imagining the immense happiness I would be bursting from if only this had happened to my mate instead. "Killian, enough of this, talk to me!" Sheila yelled, but not from rage. I wish it was that easy to say. But the instant the truth was exposed, Sheila would be in as much pain as I was in, and the bitter truth is that her hatred for me would return. It would consume her and kill me to see her despise me so much. I pulled up a little from the ground, wrapping my arms around her. I buried my head into her neck, inhaling her scent. I unblocked the link between us, masking all my emotions so they won't betray me. My amber pair moved to meet hers. And for a second, I got lost in my thoughts. I didn't deserve her. I knew it. And yet, shamelessly and selfishly, I couldn't risk telling her the truth now. This would be the height of my betrayal and it's unforgiven. I just might lose my mate, and this time, it'll be forever. "I am sorry," I said through the mind link, feeling Riker's silent presence at the back of my mind. He had barely muttered a word since yesterday when we received the news. "About what?" she asked, adjusting her body on mine. "Everything. The pain, humiliation, and suffering I have made you go through being my mate," I was being earnest. "I just feel so bad about it, is that it?" Her curious eyes pried into the depths of my eyes. I nodded. "Yes, I lied, for now." Sheila nodded her head slowly as well. Her eyes were pretty clear that she didn't believe a word I had said. "Then it's all right, Killian. Everything is in the past," she kissed me. "What is important is our future together," she muttered, and my heart ached at her words. I knew the chances of a future with Sheila were slim when she found out about this. "On that note," she began, "I will be sending Thea away from the pack before the dusk of today." Her words threw me off guard, and it made my insides crawl. That would have been good news if the circumstances had been different. I also was dying to have Thea away from here, and focus on my life with Sheila. But that will no longer be possible. And I had no way of telling Sheila without having to spill the truth. The truth I detested and wished I could spare her from. But unfortunately, at this point, there was nothing I could do. Killian's point of view. Sheila and I walked back to the castle, after finishing up training. I showered and got dressed for the meeting at the council today. I will be going with Alan and Mason, since Valerie and Lorenzo have not returned since yesterday. They had made a short trip to the south, along with a witch from Leonardo's pack. Well, since I had learned the truth about Sheila's true identity, I have been trying my hardest not to get in any sort of confrontation with those brothers of hers, and I noticed so have they. At least, Leonardo does try to keep Kaiser in check. We still very much hated each other, but Valerie was right, only Sheila would come out hurt in all of this. I can't imagine how it must make her feel, having a mate who despised her family and a family who despised her mate. I really can't trust myself to make any promises, but I swear, I would do my hardest to tolerate her brothers, and I know for her, they would do the same and even worse. That's why we've been working together. Valerie, Lorenzo, and a trusted witch from Leonardo's pack had left to visit an old elder witch in the south. She was also once an old crystal witch from the Crystal Fortress, and a friend of Fiona, Sheila's mother. It was a discreet meeting, even the council wasn't aware of this. It was regarding the Dark Circle attacks that have sprung up in the south. We knew they were blood sacrifices, and Leonardo Black seemed to think it somehow had to do with Sheila. But sincerely, I hoped not. I wished this was all a nightmare. After learning about Sheila's identity, I realized how much danger she was in. She was the child the prophecy spoke about on the crystal stone and was a target of my father and the Dark Circle. They wanted her dead 14 years ago, and maybe still do. But I swear to the goddess, I would protect her with my life. This wasn't only because she was my mate, regardless of who Sheila's family was, it was my way of paying for the sins my father had committed against her. What Nell Reed had done to Sheila and her pack that night was wrong. I knew that best. They had lost so much that night. That was also the truth. But I couldn't flush this rage and hatred away. What Alpha Logan had done as well was wrong. I could only imagine the pain he must have felt, coming home to meet his wife's lifeless body. Even I would lose it if something happened to Sheila. But Alpha Logan's action that night also ruined our lives and took many lives, not just Carl's but many from both packs. I sighed, shaking that thought off. I didn't like to remember what could have happened if everything turned out differently that night. Carl would still be alive, and so would everyone who died as a result of the war, including Alpha Logan. And Sheila might have been found. She wouldn't have to grow up with Lucius, living a lie. However aggravating the situation was, Leonardo was right to keep Sheila's identity a secret. And I just hope the Dark Circle and the Council don't find her. I was done dressing, I left my chamber and sauntered to Sheila's. She was already dressed by the time I got there and was about to wear her ankle boots. I went to the bedside where she was seated, and crouched down in front of her, helping her out with her boots. I fastened its leather ropes firmly, helping her up. "Are you leaving now?" She sauntered to her dressing table, combing her hair. "In a few minutes," I said, stopping so close behind her that I could feel the softness of her back against my body. "Morgan will be around, if you need anything, just ask him, and please, stay close to him at all times and don't go anywhere alone." Sheila stopped combing her hair, her blue eyes pierced mine through the tall mirror, while my hands snaked around her waist. "Killian, it's really sweet that you are paranoid about my safety, but I can take care of myself," her sweet voice sounded, making me smile as I rested my chin on her shoulder blade. "Well, I know," I whispered in her ears. I didn't need anyone telling me what Sheila was capable of. I've seen it myself at Lucius's pack, and the night of the blood moon when she saved my people. I turned her around, and her slender hands clutched my neck, awakening a tingling sensation everywhere our bodies made contact. "There's something I have to tell you, Sheila," I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible, and keeping every emotion from my eyes. Sheila studied me, and I could see worry cloud her eyes. "Is it about the council?" she asked, worriedly. "No," I shook my head. "It's something else," I whispered more to myself, knowing she could hear me. "But seriously, be careful. We still haven't caught Lucius yet. He could attempt to get you again." Lucius' sudden disappearance worried me greatly. I had warriors placed around his territory and even in the pack, but there hasn't been any sign of him. Kaiser also had the Black Blood warriors around, just for additional eyes. Still, there's been nothing. What had me more worried was that witch that had been after Sheila and me. Sheila had informed us that she was also working for Lucius and Lucius had sent her into my territory. And even she has been off the radar as of late. I knew deep down that wherever Lucius was, he was probably with that witch and the other warriors and witches that had fled before the war. He could be planning an ambush since his pack has been defeated. "There's still no news on Lucius?" Sheila asked, and I shook my head. I didn't respond, not even sparing her a glance. "Are you now ignoring me, even after knowing the truth?" She spoke again, and I kept ignoring her. Suddenly, she stopped. "Have you told her yet?" Her words caused me to halt instantly. I felt my blood turn hot, my claws were digging against my palm and my hands were balled. "Rip her throat out." This was the first time in days Riker had spoken since Thea told us the news. And I badly wanted to rip her throat out. I should have done it a long time ago, at least then I wouldn't be in this mess. My eyes shut. I shouldn't be having these thoughts. Even though I hated Thea now, no one but me should be blamed for this mess. And having these dark thoughts made me feel like I was exactly like the man I despised, my father, who was an absolute monster to his very own children. I had made a promise to myself that no matter what, I would never be that man. I turned to find Thea's triumphant smile on her face. She was loving this. She enjoyed watching me suffer like this. "That doesn't concern you, Thea. This doesn't change anything between us," I said to her, but her smile remained. "No, it doesn't, but it changes everything between you and your supposed mate. And you know, it has everything to do with the pack now," she said, confidently. "And I regret it all. I regret ever meeting Thea Chrysler. I regret ever having anything to do with her. But none of that mattered now. It didn't change the fact that I may never get rid of this vile woman from my life, and this mess may cost me, my mate." Killian's point of view. "Well, if you can't tell her, I guess I should." Thea crossed her arms against her chest. This woman was pure evil. How couldn't I see it all this time by her side? She was clearly faking everything. She has to know her place now, and the pack needs to know that I am the one about to have your— "Shut up, Thea. I had no idea how I was before her, and my hand was around her neck, strangling her with my sharp claws. Killian, if what you want is to murder me and rid yourself of your responsibility, then fine. After all, you are no different from your monstrous father, she bit out, still smiling, without even fear for her life. Thea was indubitably sick to her bones. Her astute brown eyes had a dangerous glow in them. One that held so much evil. I moved away from her, retracting my claws. You are crazy, Thea, I said to her, walking away from her. This stunt of yours won't last long. Whatever you say, Killian, but I won't be leaving this pack, not today, not ever, she said. I left her, rushing out of the castle. I found Alan and Mason waiting for me beside our horses, and Morgan was there as well. By the look on his face, I could tell he wanted to talk. We took a stroll, stopping when no one could listen to our conversation. Say it quick, Morgan, I'm already late for the meeting, I turned to him, peering into his deep green irises. All right, brother. Tell me, what in the goddess' name is happening between you and Thea? Morgan bit out, surprising me for a full second. I looked away from his questioning gaze. It's complicated, Morgan. What is complicated? I thought you of all people would be more than eager to do away with her, his words came at me again. Believe me, I was. Especially when I realized Thea is not who I thought she was. She's evil and psychotic, I said. And yet, you keep her around, Morgan said without mercy. Not by choice, I shot back, inhaling. Things are really bad, Morgan. Morgan's brows crippled on me. How bad? So bad that we might not be able to kick her out, I muttered. Killian, I don't understand. But this is affecting Sheila and I don't like it. And do you think I am enjoying any of this? I voiced. I screwed up, Morgan, by getting involved with Thea, and now that I realized who she really is, I am paying the price. Explain things to me, Morgan crossed his broad arms against his chest, meeting my amber eyes. I will, but after I get back from the council, I told him, and I also need your help, I said. Morgan was the best person I could trust with this. Tell me, brother. It's about Thea. Now more than ever, I need to find out who she really is. Thinking back, there are a lot of things about her that doesn't seem right. I don't know how I could have not noticed any of them. I guess I was too focused on breaking the curse that I overlooked it all. Please, take care of Sheila, I said to him. He was the only one that understood my words as Sheila's identity was only known by the two of us. Of course, he replied. I could only be thankful to him. I got on my horse and raced away with both Alan and Mason. We made our way to the council's castle, and after a long ride, we arrived there. I went into the court with Mason and Alan. Almost everyone had arrived for the meeting, even Leonardo was present. After a while, the meeting began when Cade, one of the head assistant warriors of the council's army, stalked into the court with a few elder wolves and Zariat. I glanced around but Amelie wasn't around for today's meeting. Everyone descended on their seats, except Elder Alex, who began. We still have no news from Samuel yet, he said, pausing. Samuel was the head warrior of the council's army. He was leading the search for the prophesied one. They are still searching for the prophesied child, but that isn't why we are here today, he muttered, gaining everyone's attention as Cade stepped forward. At the last meeting with the council, a few teams were set up from the council's army and were sent to all the region to infiltrate some pacts, kingdoms and covens that were affiliated with the Dark Circle, since no one knew the main location of the Dark Circle. The location of the Dark Lord has been unknown to everyone right from time. No one knew where they existed, and the identity of their core members was unknown as well, including that of the Dark Lord. Just like my father, who had once been in alliance with the Dark Circle, the council also had the names of a few pacts and kingdoms that were in alliance with the Dark Circle. So, the council sent a few teams from the army to infiltrate those pacts and kingdoms that were in alliance with the Dark Circle in hopes that we might get the Dark Lord's location, and also find more information about the attacks made in the name of the Dark Circle on each region. As we are aware, the attacks by the Dark Circle are a pattern of a blood sacrifice. Cade and his team that has been undercover at one of the vampire kingdoms in the east that are in alliance with the Dark Circle found out that the blood sacrifices done by the Dark Circle is being anchored by the power of the Phoenix Stones, Elder Alex uttered. His words caused the court to become noisy with incoherent murmurs. "Silence, please," came Zariah's voice, halting all noises in the court. What Cade had told us has been confirmed by all our other informants scattered around the region in Dark Circle affiliated pacts, and kingdoms of many kinds. This is true, and very much dangerous. She leaned on the circular mound within the court. A blood ritual anchored by the magic of all Phoenix Stones at once only means the greatest darkness itself is being awakened, Zariah finished, and I felt air leave my lungs. "Do you really think this has to do with the prophecy that was engraved on the crystal stones?" a vampire king asked. And Zariah nodded. "Yes. It is not just a coincidence that we found out Fiona's child was alive right after these attacks began. It's all a pattern, and what was written in the prophecy. The greatest darkness that threatens the existence of every magical kind is out there as well, in the hands of the Dark Lord and his circle. And besides, Amelie confirmed this too, in one of her visions," Zariah said, directing her gaze to where Leonardo was seated. "One of Amelie's visions was a warning to us all. We have to find Fiona's child before the Dark Circle finds her. That's if they don't have her already, because she is the very source that would set this darkness free." At Zariah's words, my eyes widened as they darted on Leonardo, who was clearly masking every emotion of his, as everyone's gaze traveled his way. "That's ridiculous," the prophecy clearly said. Felix began but was instantly cut off by Zariah. "We know what the prophecy says. My sisters and I were there, Felix. It stated that the prophesied child will battle against this unknown darkness. But it doesn't say anything about this darkness, not even its origin or the inevitable outcome of the war on our throats," Zariah said. "One of Amelie's visions was about that child, Alpha Leonardo's sister. She is the only one capable enough to bring that darkness to us, and as well end it. They will come after her. It's not just mere luck that she survived all these years, it's her destiny, and no one can hide from their destiny. Everyone present here knows that much," Zariah added, and immediately, Leonardo was up from his chair. "If you all invested the time you sit here and make nonsense absurdly about my sister, into getting, even just a location of the Dark Lord, then I am sure we would have gotten somewhere by now." Leonardo's words boomed within the court, and as soon as he was done, he stormed out of the court with Jensen, his most trusted beta and warrior. I breathed in deeply. Zaria's words sank into my mind as I rubbed my face with my hands. Her words were disturbing, and I knew it shook Leonardo really hard as well, to the point he couldn't stand it and had to leave. But the witch was right. No one could ever fight against their destiny. I wonder what future the goddess had for us all. Sheila's point of view: I was in a meeting with Morgan and some ranking old wolves from the village pack at the far northern borders of the pack's territory. I could hear nothing, except the consistent tapping of my padded fingers against the flat surface of the round table in the court. I had tried to tear my thoughts away, but I couldn't. Killian's words had been hounding my thoughts all morning. I just couldn't fathom his words. And I couldn't quell the rage that kept growing within me every time Killian's words echoed in my mind. I couldn't understand why he still wanted Thea around after everything. I thought he would be ecstatic to have her out of the pack. Several thoughts raced through my mind as I tried to come up with a reason why Killian would plead with me not to throw Thea out, yet. I took a deep breath when I heard the sharp call of my name. I snapped my head to my right, where Morgan was seated not far from me. His green careful eyes were on me, watching me closely with concern. "Are you all right?" I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I released a small assuring smile, nodding, "I am all right." "Please, let's continue. What do you think about it, Luna?" Elder Zed asked. I coughed, cleared my throat, and tried to think back to what we were previously discussing. Carelessly, I'd let my thoughts wander far. I started when abruptly, the tall doors of the court burst open. I swayed my head in its direction, and my eyes went round with rage as it landed on Thea, standing in front of the court doors. "What is she doing here?" Adi spat angrily as she rose at the back of my mind. "What are you doing here, Thea?" I lifted my chin, shooting daggers at her, and the ridiculous dress she had on and the manner she decorated herself. My blue eyes met up with the dark gleam in her eyes and the smug on her face. Something had changed from the last time I had seen her. She had an annoying smirk on her lips that I wanted to beat off. "Oh, I apologize for interrupting," she strutted in, striking a stance before us all. "I was waiting to have an audience with every one of you, but this meeting was taking such a long time. Whatever you have to say can wait, we are in the middle of an important meeting," one of the ranking wolves sounded. "It could, but this is a matter of utmost importance as well. Alpha Killian had promised to have a word with you all, but he hasn't." I creased my brows as a dangerous rage began to beat within me, overrunning the fear that prickled at my chest. "Thea, get out," came Morgan's voice. "I will," she smiled, not taking her brown eyes off me. "But not after I say what I have to say." I was up from my chair instantly. I felt squeezy and uneasy from the inside. I knew whatever Thea had to say was the reason behind Killian's unexplainable attitude these days. I knew it was something I wouldn't like, something that would change my life forever, or maybe worse, leave Killian and me in ruins. I felt the raging banging of my heart in my chest, making it hard to breathe, and even though it caused chaos in my soul, I tried my hardest to hide it all away. Morgan called for the warriors outside the court doors, and immediately, both Jax and Nate hurried in. Take her out, Morgan ordered, and Jax and Nate charged closer to Thea. She didn't even bother to resist as her eyes kept prodding mine. And please, see her back to her chamber. Grab every belonging of hers, and escort her out of the Pax territory. I turned to Jax and Nate, without breaking eye contact with Thea, and her persistent smirk was still glued to her lips. Jax and Nate bowed their heads in respect. They held Thea's arms as she refused to move from her position. Like I said, I will not leave here until I tell you all what I have to say. Believe me, it'll interest all of you. Her eyes scanned over every ranking member at the round table before they finally returned to mine. Especially you. I have no interest in you, Thea. Even more, whatever garbage you have to spill. Take this trash from my sight, I said with my rage at its peak, and everyone could feel it. Jax and Nate grabbed her and began to pull her out of the courtroom, and she still didn't budge. Her eyes still held its evil gleam and her lips her irksome smile. What I have to say is the truth, and nothing less. Killian and I have been blessed by the goddess, she muttered calmly at the door. I am pregnant with the Alpha's heir. I froze completely, as my legs grew weak, and I staggered a step back, almost losing my balance. I couldn't fight the abrupt stillness that shook my body as Thea's words kept resounding non-stop in my ears, and the smugness on her face grew larger. What? Thea was pregnant with Killian's child, and he knew it. He knew it. Thea held a smirk which made her words even more believable. That's ridiculous. I heard one of the old wolves say. Is it? Does that sound ridiculous? Her words shook the court. I am pregnant with Killian's son and the Alpha's heir, and you think that sounds ridiculous? Thea, you are a disgusting liar, Morgan voiced, charging at her. He grabbed her roughly on her hand, pushing her out of the door, but she resisted. What proof do you want to consider my words true? She barked. Do you want Killian to attest to it himself, or rather still, you want me to tell you stories of the time Killian and I made love? Her pointed words pierced through the walls of my heart. I held on to the small fabric of my dress, curling it in a ball as I battled against the dangerous rage that vibrated within my bones, wanting to claim Thea's life as she kept rambling on. The court was a disaster. Everyone was yelling, fighting against Thea, claiming her words were baseless fallacies, but deep down, I couldn't believe it. I was losing control of my emotions as the court became chaotic, worsening my state. I was vibrating with several emotions at the same time that made my magic lose control, and without warning the tall windows within the court shattered abruptly and everything inside the court exploded at the shattering sounds of the crashing windows. Broken shards from the window flew across the court, as the light gentle air around the court became rough and violent, sending the sharp blades of the window shards flying around the court, aiming for everyone, including Thea. A few sharp shards managed to get a piece of her, wounding her, and she began to bleed. I tried to get my emotions under control, but it was next to impossible, because a part of me, maybe a greater part of me, just wanted Thea dead. I remained rooted in my position, even as everyone took cover to protect themselves. I didn't even mind the sharp shards that pierced my skin, cutting through my flesh. I felt Morgan's hands on my wrist, pulling me out of harm's way, as I fought hard to calm myself and my raging emotions, and I did. But as soon as the madness going on within the court died instantly, Thea fell on the floor, unconscious. The warriors hurried to her and picked her up. She was bleeding from the shards that had injured her. She was rushed back to her chamber and the pack's physician was summoned. I was just outside Thea's chamber with Morgan, while the doctor and her assistants were in there with Thea. Believe me, my presence wasn't out of concern, or care. I didn't care about her. And I swear I would be a complete hypocrite if I said I didn't wish those shards had killed her instead. I just had to know, I had to find out if what Thea had said was true, and if she was expecting Killian's child. To be honest, I was extremely terrified and just couldn't think straight at the moment. I didn't know what I'd do if everything was indeed true and Thea would have a child with my mate. I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down to the floor. I couldn't hold back the tears that blinded my vision, allowing them to fall freely. Morgan was a few feet away from me. I could feel his gauging eyes, but I wasn't in the mood to talk, and I could barely care about the injuries on my body. I just wanted to know the truth, and hopefully, it wouldn't be one that left me heartbroken. Just then, the door of Thea's chamber pushed open and Dr. Maggie stepped out. "Tell me, is she pregnant?" I asked, not moving from my position as I held back the water in my eyes. "Tell me, Maggie." "Yes. She is. Thea is pregnant." Her words made my heart stop instantly as the water in my eyes flowed out. And from the corner of my eyes, I watched Killian walk into the hallway. Tears, pain, and sadness reflected in those gazes of his. Sheila's point of view. Sheila, Killian rushed to where Morgan, Maggie, and I were gathered. He moved closer to me, and I jerked up on my feet. My penetrating blue eyes that held my tears and stabbing anguish landed at Killian. "Sheila, I swear I was going to tell you," he started, but before he could speak further, I walked straight past him, grabbing a handful of my dress in my hands. I raced out of the castle, sprinting into the woods. I was far from being in control of anything, especially my emotions. I felt a gruesome sensation stir in my bones. There was deep turmoil in my broken soul. I didn't stop, I kept racing without any direction. I just wanted to stop the hurting in my soul. This was all too much to bear. Just when I had thought my life was finally in order, Thea was pregnant. She's pregnant with my mate's child. Killian's child. She's carrying his heir. I crashed against the earth, shedding tears profusely. I couldn't contain it all within. Thea once again would be rooted in our lives. She would always be in Killian's life, and unfortunately, she had a permanent position in the pack. I cried painfully, clutching onto the tree closest to me. I heard quick hasty steps trail my tracks. I was up on my boots, again, not wiping my tear-stained face. I turned to leave. I just wanted to be alone. Surely, that isn't hard to understand. I felt the tingles that I am beginning to detest. It had brought me nothing but pain. "Just wait for a second," Killian grabbed my hand, swerving me around to face him. "I swear I wanted to tell you, but I just couldn't." "You just couldn't? You have no idea how you've humiliated me, Killian. I had to find out in the presence of everyone that my mate was expecting his lover's child." Tears rolled from my eyes. I had no idea what had hurt me the most. The fact that he knew but couldn't spare me the humiliation of finding out through his lover, or the fact that the rest of my life, I had to share him with someone else. I backed away from him, tearing up. I couldn't understand what cursed fate the goddess had given me. What gruesome crime had I committed to deserve all this? Killian moved to me, eyes swollen with pain as well. You know I would rather die than cause you pain, ever again, he muttered, and I believed him. But none of that mattered. Nothing could erase the pain I felt. Not Killian's apologies or his words. I didn't know how to tell you. I would give anything to have that child with you, he said. I want nothing to do with her, but I swear I never touched her when we were together. Thea knew for a long time, but she only told me few days ago. Despite the pain desiccating me, I broke into an unusual laughter that soon morphed into tears. Of course, she must have known for a long time she was expecting Killian's child. I bet she only waited to humiliate me. Now everyone in the pack knew Thea was expecting Killian's child, the pack's future heir. Nothing you say matters now, Killian. I took a step back as Killian tried to reach for me. Thea, I don't care about Thea, Killian rushed. I don't care about her, and I care about you. Please, just tell me nothing is going to change between us, please. I was still for a second. Are you serious right now, Killian? Thea is expecting your child. That child alone changes everything between us. You know very well what it means. That child will be a constant reminder of my humiliation. You have no idea how much damage I feel that once again, your lover has something I wanted, and I don't know how to be okay with that. I just didn't know what to do with the pain I felt. I wanted to be angry with Killian. I should be. Even if he wasn't loving this as well, this was his fault. He had placed that woman between us in the first place. He had first given my rightful place to her and she was expecting his child. That was too much and I doubt if I could forgive that. Sheila, I placed a hand up, silencing him. Just let me grieve alone, at least, you could do that much for me. I walked away, leaving him behind. All I could do was cry. It was better to let it out than have the pain and anguish consume me. For the first time, I had no idea what to do. One thing I knew was I couldn't go back to the castle. I wanted to be alone, I wanted to think. I felt completely alone. I wanted to go to my brother's pack, but I doubt that was the right choice, knowing there were too many eyes watching them. But I couldn't stand this pain. I shut my eyes as more tears rolled out and the darkness descended on me, demanding I made a choice. I grabbed my dress, taking a route in the woods that led out of Killian's pack. I headed for the Black Blood pack. I stripped, shifting to my wolf, and clutching my dress with my canines. I headed for the Black Blood pack. After a few minutes of running, I arrived there, scouting the surroundings before I took the secret path into the castle, covering my tracks. I navigated my way to the top floor, strictly for Leonardo, Kaiser, and Leonardo's mate, Denise. I made my way to the private dining hall before I could enter. I heard Denise's soft call, "Sheila." I swerved around, and she hurried to me, wide-eyed, scrutinizing me. "What happened to you?" I groaned. I had forgotten about my wounds. They were all healed now, but I still had blood all over my body and dress. I suddenly realized it was a bad idea to come here. If Leonardo or even worse Kaiser saw me in this state, they might think Killian tried to kill me. It's a long story, I said. Don't let my brothers know yet, I need your help. Can you help me with a dress? Yeah, of course, Denise replied, but her voice still held immense worry. She held me, and as we turned for the door, I realized someone was there. It was as if my eyes fell into a mirror reflection of my very own angry blue crystals. Leonardo, I breathed out, feeling his intense stare on me. What happened to you? He spoke calmly, but every word of his held a deathly rage. He wasn't saying it, but I could see the words shooting from his eyes. Did Killian do this to you? It wasn't Killian, if that's what you are thinking, I said. I lost control and this happened, I said, remembering everything that happened in the court. I couldn't win against the tears that gathered in my eyes. Leonardo's eyes were on me as I fought hard not to break down in front of him. All right, we'll be right back. Denise held me and led me to her chamber. She lent me one of her dresses that fit me properly, and after that, we made our way back to the dining hall on the top floor. Leonardo was waiting for us there, and he had ordered some food for me. But I had no appetite. I glanced around and Kaiser wasn't there. What about Kaiser? I took a seat around the chair, and so did Denise. He went with Valerie and Lorenzo, Leonardo drawled in his husky voice, taking a sip from his drink before his prodding eyes met mine. You should eat something, Denise offered. I shook my head, really, thanks, but I am not hungry. What happened to you, Sheila? Leonardo's deep voice forced my gaze on him. His striking blue eyes took a peek at my soul. I pulled my eyes away. I knew exactly what my brothers were capable of. They already hated Killian. I didn't want to think of what would happen if they found out what had happened between Killian and me, especially when I didn't know what I would do. I loved Killian, but I could never be okay with Thea still in our lives. Even worse, now she was pregnant with Killian's child. I had nothing against the child, but I knew Thea. This was her plan all along. It would be unbearable having to live the rest of my life with my mate's lover and his child with her. No matter what Killian says, everything changed between us, and I would never humiliate myself any further. Sheila, Leonardo's voice jerked me from my thoughts. It's nothing. Leonardo asked. He is expecting his heir with his lover, how is that nothing? I released a small whoosh of air from my lungs as a tear slipped down my eyes. Sheila's point of view. I released a small whooshing of air from my lungs as Leonardo's words rang in my ears and made a crack in my chest, allowing so much pain in my soul. When the truth was summed up in those words, I realized it wasn't anything. I shut my eyes closed, and still, those treacherous tears managed to sneak past the jammed gate of my eyes, rolling down my cheeks. You heard, I said in a careless whisper, knowing his spies at Killian's pack must have known as well. It wouldn't take long before the whole capital learns of this as well. I keep my men there to know everything that has to do with my sister. His voice became low and soft. He is having a pup with his lover, is that okay with you? No. I hated it. I wanted to murder both that Peach and Killian. I wanted to do everything to vent the pain I felt. But I knew Killian also felt the same pain, we were mates after all. I was up from the chair, ambling to the tall window, my hands hugged my arms tightly. "What do you want, Sheila? Just say it and I swear I would have both Killian's and that Pisha's head before you." Leonardo was cut off instantly by Denise. "Enough, Leo. It's her mate you are talking about." Denise rose to my defense. "I couldn't bear to see Killian hurt. But just the thought of having Thea dead gave me a terrifying satisfaction. I should have killed her a long time ago when I had the chance." I felt Leonardo's presence behind me. "I apologize for my words. I just hate to see those gazes of yours in pain." The tears that gathered in my eyes rushed for freedom, as Leonardo's arms covered me and I broke more into tears. "I hate him, but I care more about you. And I always will. Take your time and make your decision. You could stay here, no one recklessly wanders on this floor," he said. And that was exactly what I needed. Time to think. I could barely eat a mussel at dinner, and after I was done, Denise showed me around. And after many years, I took the opportunity to visit my mother and father's chamber. It looked the same. My brothers hadn't changed anything at all. I could still feel their warmth and scent. I walked out of the chamber, and Denise showed me to my chamber. It was the same for 14 years, it was the one I made use of when I was a child before the goddess decided to curse me for eternity. As soon as I was left alone, I crawled under the covers, staring at the window, lost in deep thoughts. I had no idea when I fell asleep. But I woke up to a sweet tingling feeling. So alien, and it made my body feel differently. I stirred on the bed, placing my hand on the large hand that covered my waist. I felt hot flaming kisses at the crook of my neck. It gave me a different feel from the one I was accustomed to, somewhat addictive, and I found myself flinging my head backward, moaning. I turned on the bed, and immediately, my lips were engulfed by his and my body responded to his. I kissed him back as roughly as he did, feeling an unfamiliar feeling in my chest. His lips left mine and began kissing my neck down to my chest, while my hands worked on his body, caressing every muscle of his. He kept on the assault on my body until abruptly my eyes fluttered on the tall mirror near the bed. My eyes went round, enlarging as I saw my reflection in the mirror staring back at me. It was me, but at the same time, it wasn't me. She looked like me and had my appearance, but those depths of hers were covered by frightening darkness. I jerked on the bed, and my eyes fell on the man before me. It wasn't Killian. I felt my heart beat faster in my ears, as his piercing golden eyes regarded me amusingly. They were terrifying. I attempted to leave the bed, but his strong arms confined me, pinning me down on the bed. "Not too fast, little witch, you are mine," he muttered with a sickening, devilish smirk. I wrestled against his strength, and just then, I noticed the black ink symbol that covered a portion of his chest. And I froze. I recognized the symbol, even Killian's father, Nell Reed, had one engraved on his wrist that night. It was a dragon symbol of the Dark Circle. My eyes went up to meet him, studying me with so much fascination. They were bold, and somehow I knew who he was. He was the Dark Lord himself, the one after my life. My eyes widened the more as I screamed, jerking up from the bed, and instantly my eyes fell on the shadow of someone leaning against the wall. My screaming intensified, causing the fire to break out uncontrollably around my chamber using my magic. The figure hurried to me, despite the fire that had begun to burn profusely, and its bright flame illuminated him perfectly. My eyes narrowed, and I killed the blazing flames instantly before he got hurt. Kaiser! Don't scare me like that, I screamed, feeling the beads of sweat on my forehead and neck. Are you all right? He spoke hastily. I brushed back the locks of hair that carelessly stuck to my face. I nodded, hearing Kaiser exhale in relief. Did you have a bad dream? My eyes met Kaiser's deep hazel at his question and I nodded again. I glanced around the chamber, and my eyes fell on the tall mirror near the bed, remembering what seemed like a dream seconds ago, but somehow, I was convinced it wasn't. It felt like it was a dream, but at the same time felt so real, almost as if he was here, the Dark Lord. It was him. I didn't know how I knew, but strangely it was as if I recognized him. I rubbed my palm against my face, meeting Kaiser's worried eyes. I am fine, Kai. I pulled up from the bed, repairing the damage the fire had made with my magic. I turned to find Kaiser's scrutinizing eyes on me. I heard about what happened with that imbecile, he began, and I was about to speak but he pulled his hands up. Leonardo asked me not to murder him, he said, yet. And I sighed. Thank you, I embraced him. What are you doing here? I thought you left with Valerie. Kaiser's face became serious. I did, and we are back, he said, moving to the door. What happened? I asked, following his movements. Then his eyes met mine. We will talk about it later, I was familiar with those words. It's either he doesn't want to talk about it, or whatever it was bad. Leo is waiting for us, Kai informed, and led me out of my chamber, to the private dining hall on the top floor. We went in and found Leonardo waiting for us with his beta, Jensen, and a man dressed in black. A witch, I felt his magic. They lowered their heads to us, before exiting the private hall. What's going on? I asked, taking a seat beside Leonardo. It's Lucius, he was sighted in the West region, Leonardo said. What is he doing there? I shuffled on my chair. We don't know, and my men lost him, but it seems he has an ally pack there, Leonardo muttered. That's true. Lucius has people there that he could ask help from, I said, and I know he won't just give up after his pack was conquered, he'll be back for revenge and will come after the Crescent North pack. Well, good riddance, Kaiser uttered. He'll be dumb to come after us. Killian's pack may be one of the largest in the whole of North Central, but Lucius isn't stupid to wage war against our resources. I clasped my fingers together. I'll have to send word to Killian and warn him. I didn't know when I'll be back in the pack. I broke out of my thoughts as my eyes fell on Leonardo. What happened at the council meeting? They are still crazily searching for you, and they sent some of the council's army to infiltrate some packs and kingdoms in alliance with the Dark Circle, to get a location, Kaiser summarized. I felt my chest tighten, shaking my thoughts off from the dream I had of that man I had never seen. The manner in his eyes regarded me made me cringe, and I hated the alien and unfamiliar feeling that blossomed in my chest at his touch. I hated it. Killian's point of view. I pinched the skin on my forehead, exiting Sheila's chamber. I had stayed up all night waiting for her, but she never came back. I had thought she stayed somewhere else, but she was neither in the witch's quarters nor with Brielle and Ria nor in my office. I walked so hastily, like a freaking lunatic who hasn't had his medication yet, as I made my way to my chamber. I knew that was pretty stupid to think Sheila spent the night there when that would be the last thing she'd do. But I was running out of ideas, and I just wanted to find her, to know she was right here in the castle. It didn't matter if she was still mad at me. She had every right to be. What I had done was unforgivable. Even though I hated that situation, this was all my fault. I had let the devil herself into my pack and gave her rights to me. Rights that belong solely to Sheila, my mate. And now, Thea was pregnant with my child. That was something I never wanted, and everyone in the pack knew of this. Thea was having my first child, the pack's heir. I wanted it to be Sheila. I wanted her only to be the mother of all my pups, but I ruined that chance first when I made Thea my lover and mistreated my mate. That was something that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I jerked the door to my chamber open, and she wasn't there. What was I thinking? If Sheila didn't spend the night at the castle and pack house, then she could be in danger. I ran a hand through my hair, as I mind-linked the head warrior, Xavier, to get the warriors searching for Sheila. I hurried downstairs, heading to the castle's main door, when I noticed Morgan in the dining hall, having his breakfast all alone and in silence. I moved to the dining hall and his emerald green eyes fell on me, before scanning me meticulously. "You are a wreck, brother," he commented on my present state and appearance, but I couldn't even take offense to his words. "Have you seen Sheila?" I asked, knowing if anyone would know about Sheila's whereabouts, it was either Ria, Brielle, or him. But since the other two didn't know, Morgan just might. He pulled his gaze away from me, focusing on the silver cup he brought to his lips. I sighed in relief. He did know where she was. "Please, Morgan. Tell me, where is she?" "Rest assured, she's not in any danger and she's fine, at least physically, but I can't say the same about her mental health," he counted his words, before pulling his eyes back to his breakfast. I dropped weakly on the chair opposite his, mind-linking the warriors to cease searching for her. "Where is she?" "She isn't at the pack," I said, leaning my palms. "She left. Did you expect her to stay after finding out her mate was about to have his pup with his longtime lover?" Morgan shot at me mercilessly. I couldn't even argue back. I deserved it. But the mention of Sheila leaving hurt me deep inside. She was my life, and if she left me, I was as good as dead. I fought back the waters that stung my eyes. I hated this. "Oh goddess, please help me. Tell me where she's at, please," I voiced brokenly. "Why? So you can go and get her." He came at me angrily. "I would never force her back here. I understand she needs time alone from you," Morgan added. I breathed in, rubbing my face. "Yes, time alone from me. But I have to know where she is," I said. I had to know where she was. She was a danger being by herself alone. After what Zaria said at the council meeting yesterday, the Dark Circle would never stop until they found her. "She's with her brothers," Morgan stated flatly. "She's at the Black Blood Pack." I rephrased, exhaling deeply. I had completely forgotten about them. Believe me, rage and hatred was the last thing on my mind. In contrast, I felt relieved. I knew Sheila was safe there. Leonardo would never let harm come to her, let alone Kaiser. But what scared me was when she'll be back, or rather, if she'd ever come back. Let's just give her time, Riker sounded weakly, before locking himself away. We were both feeling the same pain and frustration, but he had it much worse. Tell me, brother, what's your plan? Morgan shifted his plates aside, his penetrating eyes on me. What if I told you I do not know? I said honestly. I wanted nothing more than to kick Thea out of this pack. But she was pregnant with my child nonetheless, and now, everyone in the pack knew of this. They may not be happy about it as well, because everyone preferred it to be Sheila. They loved her. But every single soul knew what it meant for Thea to be expecting my first pup. This was just about me, but it involved the pack as well. And Thea having that child would be giving her a permanent position in the pack, and Sheila, and my life. Do you think Sheila would come back here, knowing that for the rest of her life, she'll have to put up with Thea, and her pup? Morgan asked, and honestly, I didn't think so. But selfishly, I didn't want to lose my mate. I loved her. I messed up badly, I said, whispering. Yeah. You did, Morgan uttered, and we dwelt for long seconds in silence. And the other thing I asked about? I asked, pulling my head up to meet my brother's gaze. What? He raised a brow. Thea. Have you found out anything about her? I queried plainly. I never imagined I would ever have to find out more information on Thea of all people. But now I realized how dumb I was in the past. I did not know the woman that had been in my pack for a very long time. And now, everything about her seems so evil and secretive. You said she came from a pack in the south, so I sent word to some friends there. I haven't received any feedback yet. But I doubt if they'll be able to find out anything about your lover. I cut Morgan off. Please stop calling her my lover, I corrected, allowing him to continue. It amazes me you knew nothing about her, brother. You of all people, had nothing on the woman that warmed your bed, Morgan said, and now I knew he was using those infuriating words to intentionally rile me up. But as it is, the problems in my life were bigger than flimsy rage and hatred. It surprises me too. It's almost like I was under a spell or something. She said the alpha of her pack murdered her family and tried to have her murdered too, but she escaped. And after hearing it all, she insisted she didn't want to remember the past, and I dropped it, I voiced. Why would the alpha of her previous pack want her dead? Morgan asked, and I shrugged, not knowing. As I said, I foolishly dropped it. I clenched my jaw, flummoxed by how stupid I was in believing everything Thea said without any questions. That's complicated. I even believe you were under a spell crafted by Thea herself. Morgan leaned back on the chair. We seriously need more to work with. Anything, no matter how little it is. We need to know at least the name of her pack, or her previous alpha, and how do you propose I do that? Take her to bed and make her spill every truth, I asked, sarcastically with a straight face. First of all, anything as such would never happen between Thea and me. Secondly, Thea would never say anything. She didn't do it before and I doubt she will now. She was surprisingly smarter than I had thought. When you put it like that, it's a terrible idea and Sheila would murder you, Morgan said, and strangely his comment about Sheila made me chuckle genuinely. Yeah, she's capable of murdering me, I smiled to myself, remembering the time she had assumed something happened between Thea and me, and she tried to murder me with her arrows. So what do we do now? Morgan brought my attention back to him. We find out whatever information we can on Thea, I said. I don't know why, but something about her is just wrong, and this is not because I was eager to get her out of the pack, and have things okay between Sheila and me. There was something about Thea that made me doubt her entire identity. Something I'm surprised I hadn't noticed all this time. Thea's point of view. I stepped out of the washing room, fixing my robe on my body properly, as water trickled down my body. My eyes fell on the figure that was waiting for me on the bed. Immediately, I hurried to the door, and it wasn't even locked from the inside. I sighed, locking it with my magic. I spun around and my brown eyes watched my lover, comfortably seated on the bed. Seriously, anyone could have easily wandered in and found you here, I said, dumping the towel on the dressing table. I sighted my brooch on the table, grabbed it, tossing it into my wooden drawer. I grabbed a new towel and used it to dry my wet and sticky hair. By anyone, you mean Killian, don't you? I heard him say behind me, catching the look on his face through the mirror. This isn't the time to get reckless, love. If we get caught, everything fails, and my plans of revenge all these years would have been for nothing, I reminded, grabbing a dress from the rack. Believe me, I haven't felt good like this in months. Ever since she rammed into Killian's life and interfered with my plans, it's been one problem to another. But today, I felt awesomely good. And I loved it, even though it's all thanks to her. I never expected this thing inside of me to be quite useful. At first, I just needed it to stay a bit longer in the pack for a few days before Alpha Lucius's arrival. But it caused far more chaos in Killian's and that Pisha's love life, forcing her to leave the pack, and by the looks of things, she may never return. I smiled to myself, feeling the sweet breath of my lover on my neck. You know I don't care about what Lucius wants and his plans, I met his gaze through the mirror as he whispered in my ears. Yes, I do know you don't care about that. But you care about me because I am your mate. That's why you agreed to help me take revenge on Killian, whom you once valued as your brother. I placed a kiss on his lips, moving away to wear my dress. When I first arrived at this cursed pack, I never expected to be mated to a wolf. Frankly, I hated their kind, but this mate of mine proved to be useful to me. I narrated my entire story to him, and he was more than willing to help me. I laughed to myself. These bonds that exist between mates were more of a curse, and sadly none of them realized that. Being willing to go to the extreme for someone else because they'd both share a connection was just pathetic. I preferred looking out for myself by myself, it had always worked just fine for me. I turned around to find his eyes on me. Any word from Killian? Has he spoken about what plans he has for his child and me? I asked him, fastening my boots. My child, you mean? His words sounded, and his voice possessive. That child is mine, Thea, and I hate it when you address it as Killian's. You don't have to remind me. And we need to be cautious with our words, I don't want anything to go wrong, I said to him. Killian doesn't care about you or the child. He's more interested in getting Luna back, he muttered, causing a frown to cover my face. I cursed under my breath. Well, that would never happen. Everyone knows I am expecting the Alpha's child. His heir. And that's enough humiliation for your so-called Luna. I doubt she would be back. Don't be too certain, Killian is going crazy without her. Don't underestimate the bond between mates, Thea. You, of all people, should know what one is capable of doing for their mates. He was by my side, wrapping his arms around me. You are right, I know too well, I said. I can't wait for all these to be over. I want to start a life with you and my pup, he muttered, and I could only nod, masking my true emotions with a smile. Having a child was the last thing I was ever going to do. The thing growing within me still has its life because it's useful. Very useful. Now, because of its existence, I am almost certain Alpha Killian, and Sheila, will never get together again. I can't wait too. But before that happens, Killian needs to pay for what he did to my parents. He will grovel on his knees, knowing I destroyed him. And then it's left for the Alpha to do whatever he wants with him. Just imagining it made me ecstatic. And Luna? Hopefully, she still wouldn't be back by then. And if by ill luck she's back, it'll be fun having her witness it all. I smiled again, before moving my gaze to my lover. Lucius would never allow you to harm her, and besides, you know how powerful she is, he voiced. That doesn't matter, I have my ways. Before then, I'll have to find a way to get rid of that tramp. Only the goddess knows how much I hated her. And I would only be truly happy when both Killian and her meet their demise. And what about Alpha Lucius? His pack has already been conquered and Killian has allies searching for him in North Central, and throughout the other regions. What's his next plan? He asked. He had to leave the capital, and escape North Central after the attack. He's presently in one of his most trusted ally packs in the West. He's preparing for his final attack, I smiled, combing my hair. So he is coming here. I nodded, chirping. Yes, he is. His hatred for Killian is beyond anything. He wants Killian broken and the pack at his disposal, I said, studying my lover's instant reaction. Don't worry, love, we will both be fine. But unfortunately, this pack won't be, I swerved to him, placing a hand on his cheek. Alpha Lucius is building an army. The witches and warriors that managed to flee from his pack are with him, and he's making negotiations with other allied packs, requesting their armies as well. When everything is in order here, Alpha Lucius will be back to burn this pack to the ground. Tell me, do you know where she is right now? I asked him. No. But Killian knows, and he isn't worried. So I guess she is somewhere safe, he muttered, and I walked to the window, gazing at the fading sun in the sky. She has nowhere else to go. So she might be at the Black Blood Pack, I said. I thought so too, but there hasn't been any visitor there the last 2 days. It's either she isn't there, or she's hiding somewhere in the castle and no one knows. He came up behind me, his large hands caressing my flat stomach. I know she's there, I said. So you still believe she is the one? He asked, forcing me to turn to him. Each day my suspicion grows stronger, and the Alpha made sure to keep it a secret, but she isn't his daughter. At first, I thought something was going on between the tramp and Alpha Kaiser, and I wanted to use Killian to find out what was going on, but that didn't work. But what shocked me the most was that Alpha Leonardo, himself, and his brother both raided Alpha Lucius Pack, alongside Killian, to save Sheila. That's not something you find two packs that mutually detest each other doing. I paused. Not if they have something in common, something they'd both want to protect. The Luna. I nodded, smiling. She has to be that child the council keeps searching for. I am positive, it's Sheila. I released a chortle, laughing at the unruly fate between he and his mate. If my suspicion was in fact true, and Sheila was the so-called prophesied one, and the sister to Alpha Leonardo and Kaiser. If it's indeed true, then she is the one the Dark Circle has also been searching for. I couldn't help but laugh loudly, and I couldn't stop. My day just kept getting better. My lover held me tightly from my waist, regarding me. "What are you thinking?" he asked, suspiciously. "I will tell you when I have confirmed that your dear Luna is the child your Alpha's father tried to steal as a child. When I am certain of that, I'll tell you, I promise." I pecked his lips, unable to hide the euphoria and excitement. If my suspicion was right, then I wouldn't have to do anything to either the Alpha or his dear Luna. Alpha Lucius has a great plan for Killian, and whereas that peesh, I also have wonderful plans for her. One that would guarantee her imminent death at the hands of the Dark Lord himself. Oh, what a joy!